Hi, good afternoon. How are you?
Could be better.
I know, but the best we can.
Best we can.
I'm just going to use a quick minute to check, lighting, sound, connectivity. Can you see me?
Yes, clearly.
Okay, you can hear me well?
Yeah, very well.
Okay, amazing. We have a lot of people who've been really looking forward to the session with you. Everyone wants to hear your insights. So thank you so much for taking time out to do this.
Sure. My pleasure, sweetie. Always.
All okay at home? All well?
All well. Yeah.
Okay, so for everyone who's joined in, hi, good afternoon. My name is Shreya Soni. I am the CEO and founder of DSSC. Thank you so much for taking time out to tune in to the first edition of See You at 4. See You at 4 essentially is a platform to get slightly more legitimate, credible, and authentic information from domain experts and industry leaders, like the one I'm going to be in conversation with today. The idea is to get a slightly better clue in on kind of like market sentiment, business insights, any learnings from success stories that could be around us right now, and also kind of offer any kind of advice to challenges that a lot of us are facing as young businesses. I do not need to introduce the person I'm going live with today, but as a hygiene checklist, I am going to do it. Everyone say hello to AD Singh. He is the CEO and founder of the Olive Hospitality Group. Basically, he's the brain, heart, soul behind iconic establishments like Olive, Toast and Tonic, Patty Bow, Monkey Bar, Grammar Room, Soda Bottle. The list is long and plenty. We all love his establishments, and none of us are, we're all waiting and looking forward to hit your establishments the minute doors open. AD, thank you so much for taking time out this afternoon.
My pleasure, Shreya.
Okay, so I'm gonna just have a couple of basic house rules for this quick session. Everyone who's joined in, thank you so much. Really, I'm so grateful that you guys are tuning in right now. If we can maintain basic decorum, the house rules, I don't need to repeat it. We are going to have a quick round of Q&A at the end of the session. So if you can drop in your questions on the live ticker below, and then we're going to address all of them towards the end of the session. Okay, all right. AD, it's been a tough year. It's been a tough quarter for the hospitality industry. The current lockdown isn't conducive to any kind of it's a complete lockdown on operations. The supply chain is impacted. No rent relief yet. We aren't hearing much from the government yet. What measures can one take? What are you gathering from the situation right now?
Okay. Firstly, hi, Shreya, and everybody who's tuned in. Nice to be talking to all of you. Yes, the F&B industry, which probably hires more than almost any other sector except maybe the railways in this country, is in paralysis right now. We are facing almost complete lockdown of almost all restaurants. Few sectors are bravely keeping going, QSRs, home delivery, etc. But the vast majority of our hundreds of thousands of restaurants and hundreds of thousands, I think we hire over 7 million people, have no income, no business currently. So my focus actually during this period is on two things. One is to assess and try and get my company through this and survive this. The second is to try and make sure that my employees, firstly, are not, going hungry or badly impacted. Working for us, it's not as bad as being a daily wage worker, and almost all of them have PF accounts, etc. I was very grateful to the government for announcing a few days back, and the scheme actually went live yesterday, that our employees could access their PF funds and get up to 3 months of their salaries out. I think that's a
Right.
great step, yeah. And that should really help many of them and their families who are dependent on them
Yeah.
tide through
Yeah.
these very difficult times. How much are we able to do as an industry, as a company with a conscience? It's tough. You know, when my Olive in Delhi was sealed in 2006, we carried every single employee, paid them salaries and service charges, average service charges, for almost 10 months till we were able to open again elsewhere. And I was very proud of that, and I felt that was my duty and the company's duty. So as a company, we're really a company with a conscience, as I feel much of our industry is about. And it's very painful for us as well to have no income sources to be able to pay our people through this. The reserves, unfortunately, for a while, our company did have reserves. It was helping us grow. But these last 2-3 years have been very hard, owing to a lot of volatility around us, which has actually wiped out most companies, almost all reserves. So we ourselves have very little in hand to be able to support our staff with. And that's, the most painful and worrying part for all of us, owners, partners, etc. The RBI also announced 2 days ago that they would allow everyone to defer EMI payments by 3 months. And I think that'll also help staff, possibly at a little different level, with any sort of loans they've taken for the different needs that they have. So I think both these are small but good first steps and make us feel a lot better about the situation they're probably in. I also, like you, Shreya, I'm sure, and like so many of everybody tuning in, are also seeing images of people stranded on roads, stranded without food, going hungry, and it's just so galling that that people could be dying of hunger in our country today in 2020. Of course, I know most of you want to hear about what our industry is doing, but I would also say for me and for everybody on this chat, it should be very high priority to do whatever we can to try to help get food out to those who are not getting it. It's a bad time, and every little bit, I think, will count. I urge you to do your best.
AD, can I ask you at this point in time, for bigger organizations like your hospitality group, when you say, yep, reserves are kind of like, running thin, your team salaries are priority, ensuring, vendor payments is priority. I mean, and still reserves are going thin. How do younger, smaller businesses how do they kind of tie through? Because, for them, neither are they funded, nor do they have the luxury of having a bigger buffer or reserve. What's the kind of advice to the younger corporations, the younger kind of like F&B establishments? How do you get through with, and I really appreciate all the, the news about the waivers and the relief, but that only gets them up to a point. How can like the smaller companies benefit from the relief coming their way?
Okay. So to understand, Shreya, in our business, roughly speaking, about 30% of our sales goes to meeting F&B costs. Obviously, no sales, so that 30% cost is gone.
Yeah.
Approximately another 30% goes in wages, and about 15-17% in rent. That's a 47% cost that is still there without any money coming in. And then, of course, there are other costs, utilities, maintenance, etc., which many of them can be brought to zero. Is this 45, 47% cost that we all have to navigate through this time at all different sizes in the industry? We
I think
have,
that's been the biggest worry, right? The overheads aren't necessarily kind of clamping down, but one part of the cycle being your biggest bit is your sales revenue. It's a complete like wipeout right now.
yeah. So the industry has reached out to all its landlords, and I encourage every restaurant to do the same.
Okay.
This is a time of what they call force majeure, when it's not in our control. We'd like our best. We'd love to be open and functioning as normal, but it's not in our control. And the government has recognized this to be a time of force majeure. And what that does is that basically exempts two people in a contract from both sides having to fulfill what they've been contracted to fulfill, in this case, rent being one of them. And so we've reached out to all our landlords to say this is a period of force majeure. We expect no rent to be charged during this period. And that's the first critical step that we need to try to keep our heads up.
If I may ask, what has the reaction been?
So
What is the response from the landlords?
Yes, so many landlords, I mean, everybody knows what's going on and can see it. And many landlords have said, of course, and have accepted. And our company were in talks with maybe about 20% of the landlords that want to discuss it more and, see where to go. But frankly, I'm being very clear about this. Me, and I'm sure many of those tuning in, we don't have a choice. We don't have the reserves. Where are we going to ever pay this from? And it's only fair, I think, that without that, we should not be expected to pay any rent for this period. The second thing that I think is very important to those tuning in is, when this is over, what's going to happen? Is it going to go back click to what it was before? I hope so, but I very much doubt it. It's going to be a while, maybe a long while, if ever, if business gets back to what it was before. And I think we're all also going to need some serious handholding through those few months. Because you have to realize, one, the customer has been sitting at home, he's been scared, he's got into different habits of ordering in, for example. And, he's a bit worried about going out into groups. So normal patterns of behavior would not resume. Remember that most of our customers have also been struggling financially. And so for them to go and spend essentially disposable income in a nice evening out is going to be hard.
It's not high in your essential spends anymore.
No. And everybody's so shaken up. So I think there's going to be a period, I hope as short as possible, but let's plan for the worst, where we're going to have to keep doing our best till we can get back to normalcy like it was. So one, I urge everybody to plan financially there. Speak to your landlord, speak to your staff, speak to your vendors, speak to everybody you're contracted with, to try to reduce the burden on yourself, one, now, and two, even for the getting back on your feet period. The NRAI, which I'm a part of and I'm very proud of, is working hard with different governmental arms to try to get as much support as we can for the restaurants and for our staff, getting them to put policies in place, deferments in place, speak with the banks, speak with the landlords, help labor, etc., so that we can all survive this together. And I'm hopeful that the government is listening. I think it'll have to. I mean, we're only one industry, one of the most important because of the jobs we give. But I think the economy is going to need that help and that stimulus, as we've seen is happening worldwide.
So AD, till that kind of like any kind of like financial economic support comes in, and actually kind of like hits companies, conglomerates like yours. I think one of the other big worries that is soon emerging amongst, different sets of people is also the fear of pink slips and just kind of like, pay cuts. That's something separate. But right now, the fear is moving from pay cuts to getting that pink slip. And I mean, we all know that growth is extremely hard to happen. It's literally impossible to enable growth when you're operating in a market of operating from fear. So is that a very sad but eventual truth that this industry is going to see a lot of cuts in jobs?
I think that's the number one priority for all of us restaurateurs, for the government,
Yeah.
for everybody, to try to make sure that job losses are as minimal as possible. In the past, of course, my group, the Olive Group, I mean, we often thought of ourselves as being a training academy. And more than lose people, people would be poached and go to other organizations. So there was never a worry for our staff of being without a job. Maybe in these times, my group, we have about 1,800 staff. Maybe they would have to, it may not be easy to find jobs as we're expecting an economic slowdown everywhere. And I think the government...
And across industry.
Sorry?
And across industry, across the board, we're seeing
yes.
complete like slowdown.
So I think that the government and we are on the same side of the table. None of us want to see or have to lay people off. That's the outcome nobody wants. But without support, it's going to have to happen. And I think it's very critical that the government can move fast and provide that to even a corporation my size, which is one of the bigger ones with 28 restaurants.
Yeah.
Or whether you're people with just one restaurant, we're all in the same boat, and we're going to need that help to stay afloat.
So, I mean, in terms of next steps, do you think, and especially we've also, as an industry, we've seen a lot of external funding investment come through the doors of this industry in the last, 18, 24 months. What's the future for that kind of like external funding? Are investments going to kind of slow down for this industry? Are companies like, I mean, are people thinking of, consolidating, trimming down? I know expansion is, I mean, I think collectively everyone is really, really, really feeling awful for the ones who were in the process of launching a new product, a new company, a new restaurant, a new cafe, a new bar. But what about the ones that already have a fairly, a mid to large kind of portfolio? Is consolidation next step?
Okay, so two parts to that. One, I think, as we're all aware, there's going to be such an economic tightening across the world that the availability of funds is going to be tighter, there's no doubt. People will have to be much more prudent and start again step at a time. Will investments in the F&B sector be at the same level as they were before this hit? Definitely not. Will there still be some level of investment support there? I hope so. I suspect it'll take a while before it'll come back into the sector, because everybody will try to understand how the market's changed and what's going to work going forward.
Yeah, and what do you peg value against now? What is that multiple? What is the return? I feel that entire conversation is completely flipped in some ways.
Yes.
And that's the little troubling bit. And in terms of consolidation,
to ask about consolidating. So me and my teams senior teams are sitting on that right now. going through assessing all our restaurants. To be honest, even a company as experienced as ourselves with so many good people, even we have restaurants that are struggling. We've shut restaurants in the last few years in this climate. We've been doing our best to get them all to work. And now we're going to have to look at it again and say, okay, these numbers were as it is on the edge. After this reopens, they're going to be bleeding at a time when as it is, we're going to be struggling. So I think every company has to look inwards and reassess and then make the best decisions to help themselves stay afloat.
Right.
I see a
And
lot of
AD,
consolidating happening.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And I feel that's usually in change management, usually kind of tightening operations, streamlining operations is, and the org structure is number one when you're kind of operating in such a dynamic, volatile market. So I guess consolidation was going to be the opposite step. But if I may ask, I feel, there's conflicting news about, 15th April, not 15th April, trickling into May. Whenever the lockdown does kind of like emerge and open up, where do you see, I think there are two parts, and I'm going to break this down. I'm sorry. Where do you see internal funds or company funds being used in terms of what are primary use of funds and what are the secondary use of funds? So things like, salaries, business development, marketing, PR, digital, or actually kind of exploring newer sectors and avenues for businesses to kind of change focus, meaning like healthier eating or, the new forms of dining, home delivery. Is that something we're going to start focusing more on? Where do you see the shift of usage of funds now?
Okay, that is, of course, the million-dollar question for all of us. That how is the world going to change? How are our diners going to change? And what's the best way forward? Where should we prioritize? And where should we focus, of course, our funds accordingly? I think every organization is looking at that. And of course, the answers will be different for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then according to that, we'll put our money behind. Too early to say, Shreya. My own feeling, and I think that's what I would urge to our viewers as well, is that don't expect this to get over very soon. While the lockdown's only been announced for another 10, 15 days, the reality of this virus could be much longer. And so be prepared and be prepared for a longer shutdown or barely functioning time before the economy starts to, let's say, reopen, renormalize. We, of course, as a company,
from the market perspective and also maybe the diner and the customer, the paying customer perspective, right? That is going to take time to revive.
Yes. It's very nice for us to see worldwide that a lot of diners are caring about their favorite restaurants, are very supportive. Many sort of initiatives have started. People are buying vouchers of their restaurants. People are pre-booking meals. People are even donating just to help their favorite restaurants survive through this. And that's something I urge our viewers to help as much as they can in these tough times. It would not only help your restaurants, but even more importantly, help all the staff have jobs and be paid and get back on their feet as soon as possible.
Right. Okay, AD, as parting words, do you think you can, like, before we get to the questions, any advice for, the younger businesses, the ones who are just going to open up, the ones who've been in the market for several years, but this is unprecedented, this was unforeseen. What kind of advice can you offer to them right now?
So Shreya, one bit of advice that I think is always valid. Our industry is exciting and glamorous. It has a bright future, no doubt. But unfortunately, over the years, I see so many people pouring theirs and their families' life savings to making that
Hmm.
looking restaurant, great marble imported from here, etc., etc. So I would say, especially to all the entrepreneurs tuning in, those looking for growth, go slowly. Be careful right now. It will be a tough time. Much more important to hold on to your savings and
Hmm.
settle down for the march back. Don't waste anything. It's triply valuable in the days ahead.
Tighten your belts and sit tight for a bit. Yeah. Okay. AD, if you have another 5 minutes, may I ask you some of the questions that have been coming in from our viewers?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the questions, and I'm seeing repeat questions come in, how drastically will trends change, in your opinion, over the next few months with regards to dining priorities and trends?
My own feeling is that people will have got into the habit of dining in, and the numbers dining out are going to be that much less. So focus on your product for delivery, takeaway, etc. I can't see that would probably be the best opportunity area. Secondly, I'd say I think people will continue to be worried for a while about large groups. So
Hmm.
nightclubs, big bar nights, closed gatherings,
Hmm.
big events, etc., will be less well attended.
Yeah.
So just think about now itself, about good options for you to put out that work for you, maybe over a wider period of time.
Hmm. Right. Okay. And sorry, I'm just going to add in an extension to that response. More often than not, the economics of, at-home services, home deliveries, etc., it's always been one that has been a little bit of a pain point for restaurants, unless you have like a remote kitchen, etc. Just the aggregator commissions kind of just don't let the numbers ever stack up in your favor. Do you think that model is going to change a little bit?
I hope so. We are talking to the aggregators as well, and I think the sheer volume of their business is going to grow. I
Hmm.
hope that will help their margins as well, and I hope that'll
Hmm.
help them pass those margins back to the industry that is the core of their business.
Okay. Okay. Um, okay. A lot of questions, concerns are coming up for vendor payments. So, any advice to vendor partners? What should they expect in terms of, service recovery payments? When do you think things are going to get better from their perspective?
We've, for example, reached out to all our vendors, shared our own difficulties, and deferred, obviously, orders, ongoing payments, etc. It's not easy for them as well. But in our company's case, because we have a long-standing record with with most of the vendors we work with, their understanding, and we're all
Hmm.
waiting together to restart.
Hmm.
It's difficult for vendors as well, and
Absolutely.
we got to do the best we can as soon as we can, as soon as the cash flows start. That's my responsibility we all have as well.
One often kind of wonders, the pause in this back end supply chain. Unfortunately, then a lot of stock is being either kind of, you're sitting on a lot of stock, or a lot of the raw material is rotting. So is there a way to kind of like, how does one keep that circle going? How does one ensure some kind of like, ease in that supply chain?
Listen, number one, Shreya, it's awful for all of us, I'm sure, to see pictures of vegetables rotting when
Yeah.
so many people are going hungry. And I think that's one of the highest priorities that the government is working on, to try to open up the supply chains so
Okay.
that that both on the vendor side and on the consumer side, situation gets better. The government's also having a very tough time. This is overwhelming what's happened. And I do firmly believe that every day it's going to get better. So I do believe very soon, products will reach the marketplace. The vendors will start getting paid better, get more of their stuff picked up, and consumers will have much better access at cheaper rates to what they need.
We're seeing a couple of younger businesses move from B2B to B2C. And I suppose that's their way of, kind of like moving that supply chain of perishables at least. AD, I'm going to go with the last two questions. One is, during the last economic slowdown in 2008, a lot of standalone spaces mushroomed. Do you think post this current crisis, bars and cafes would come up, or is there going to be some kind of, crazy market volatility and competition?
Well, to be honest, in the economy of India in the last few years, there has been crazy volatility and crazy competition.
Yeah.
I can't imagine with the economic tightening that the levels of new openings will be at the same level as we've seen in the last few years. Volatility,
okay.
Yes.
Okay, and in terms of the last question for the day, do you think the government is going to relax / amend the alcohol license laws to help the industry get back on track? I mean, everyone knows that the cost to entry, especially in the northern region, isn't easy. Where do you think, we've addressed the food and the supply chain of it, but the B of the F&B, where do you think the beverage aspect is? How are we going to address that? Or is that not very high on the government's priority right now?
Unfortunately, in our country, alcohol is seen as such a luxury. So I don't see in these troubled times the government really focusing or helping out in that part of our industry.
That industry. Okay. Okay, AD, thank you so much for taking time out. I mean, honestly, it's such a tricky time, difficult time, but I know your thoughts and your insights and your advice is going to come to great use to a lot of our friends who've tuned in. And I hope we get to see each other very soon.
Me too, Shreya. I hope it was helpful.
It really was.
And if you have any people reaching out to you really troubled, feel free to forward to me. I'm very happy to answer a bit more if I can.
Oh, that's incredible. I know I haven't addressed